Good morning, children. Today we are going to start with the various organs or the parts that are involved in the excretion process. In your chapter, you have to study about the organs like kidneys, lungs, skin, and liver. They are actually facilitating the process of excretion via different parts of your body. As you know, the process of excretion is one of the vital process because the food that we take is not completely taken up by the body cells. The important part that is important for the cell is taken up, but the remaining part has to be expelled out. What will happen if we don't expel it out? Then what will happen? What happens when you don't throw the waste and garbages out of your house? Just imagine if you keep on accumulating the waste and garbages in the dustbin of your house, then a day will come when it will rot and will create a mess, and it will get spoiled, and it will produce bad smell, foul smell in your house. So that means somewhere it will become poisonous, unhealthy. So in the same way, in the similar way, if our body cells don't excrete out the unuseful matter or the components, they will keep on accumulating, and the day will come, what will happen to it? They will start behaving as poison, and it will harm the body. So therefore, it is very important to have a proper mechanism of excretion in our body. That is why the nature has designed in such a way that more than one organ is involved in doing such process, in facilitating this process. Apart from kidney, lungs, skin and liver are also involved in the same process of excretion. How? Let's see. The first that you are going to study is about the kidney. Now you can see over here, students, that here the diagram or the figure number 4.3 is already given there in your book, and it is depicting out the structures of kidney and the various parts of your urinary system. Okay, so we are going to study the urinary system in detail a bit later, but just to an introduction to the kidney, what I'll say is that the kidney is the main excretory system. It functions as the main excretory system of our body, and it has been taken up from the Latin word rins. Okay, so basically the urinary system in our body is also known as renal system. Okay, this renal system came from the word rins, which means kidneys in Latin, and these forms the whole system. So that is why now you see that for the filtration of blood, basically what does the kidney do? It filters out the blood. The food that we take is broken down into the stomach first of all, and the nutrients that are released are assimilated by the cells of the body. Okay, now the body cells, each and every cells of the body, they utilize those nutrients, but up till a certain point those nutrients are useful, so they are getting utilized, but some of the components are not useful, so therefore they are meant for the process of excretion. So therefore, but as they remain diffused or dissolved in the blood, what happens to them? How can we separate them out from our blood? By the process of filtration. So where does this blood get filtered out? In the kidney. So that is why kidney is known as the or it functions as the filter, and it helps in the filtration of blood. Now moving on to the next is the lungs. Okay, so first let's see what does the lungs do. Lungs helps us to expel out the carbon dioxide so formed during the cellular respiration. Now what is cellular respiration? It is a quite new term to you all, but how to understand it? Now see, cellular respiration that means the respiration that is taking part where? In the cell. Yes. And why does the cell is respiring, or how does the cell is respiring? Now see students, the food that you are taking in is getting digested, isn't it? So after the digestion, what is getting out when the food is broken down from the complex molecule to the simpler molecule? What are the things that comes out from it? Nutrients. Now these nutrients are taken up by the cells. So when the nutrients are taken up by the cells, these nutrients are burned. Okay, they are burned. Okay, now mainly the nutrient that is, which is a source of glucose, or you may say sugar. This is one of the three form of nutrient that is given or that is taken up or that is provided by all type of food that we eat. This is the basic one. Okay, so this is taken up by the cell, where in the presence of oxygen it is burned. And this process, when it is carried on, the energy is released where? In the cell itself, where this nutrient is getting processed. Okay, it is getting processed in the presence of oxygen. So therefore, during this process, what is happening? It is taking place. So what is this? Respiration. So since everything is taking place in a cell, in each and every cell of our body, we are calling it as cellular respiration. Got it? Got this point? So after the whole chemical reaction that goes inside the cell, what do we obtain at the end? We obtain energy in the form of ATP. Okay, this is energy. This is very important. This helps us to work, to play, to walk, to do each and every type of daily life activity. Okay, apart from this, what we are getting? We are getting CO2. Now, this CO2 is not useful for us, but is useful for the plants. So, we cannot keep it for long inside our cell. And if we retain it, it will harm. It will start causing harm to our body because it's a waste. The thing which is not useful is simply a waste. So, therefore, this is given out or released in the form of gas. Got it? Now, since this is given out in the form of gas, what happens? It passes through the blood stream. How does it passes? It passes first through the blood stream and enters into the lungs and goes in a reverse manner. Like it first enters into the lungs and then from lungs enters into the bronchi, and from the bronchi it is given out through the windpipe and finally expelled out from the nose. That's it. So this is the process of excretion. Is one of the process of excretion that where the lungs participate. Now, apart from this, let's move on to the next one. Is the skin. Okay, skin is one of the important, or it is the foremost barrier which is there, that you can see with your eyes, that you can feel, that you have to take care of, because it's not only helps in the process of excretion, students. Skin has a very major role. It helps our body to it keeps our body protected from the harsh environment. It keeps the our internal organs protected from the external infection, microorganism attack, and many things. Okay, and side by side it performs a major role in the process of excretion. Okay, so What does the skin do? So basically our body excrete salts and urea. Okay, what does it excrete out? Excess amount of salt and urea. So apart from the urine that is coming through the process of filtration of blood via kidney and all, these excess salt and urea is given out through the skin also, dissolved or in the form of sweat. So what is, first of all, let's see what is urea. Here it is written. Urea is one of the components which is present in the amino acid, and when the amino acid is broken down, when it is broken down, the urea is released. Actually, amino acid helps in the formation of protein. The part of the component which is not utilized is produced out as urea. So sweat from the sweat glands comes out. Okay. So sweat comes out from the sweat gland, and where you will find this sweat gland? In the under the epidermis. Under the epidermis. Now, waste products and water through the blood capillaries pass through the walls of capillaries and enters somewhere in the gland. The fine blood capillaries which are connected to the gland, okay, these capillaries, they they take up the excess salt and urea, and here they comes into the gland and get dissolved with the sweat. Now, these sweat glands, since they are present under the epidermis, or the first layer of the skin, these ducts, they get open somewhere. Okay, now see this diagram and it will be clear to you all. See, this is the main blood stream, the vein and the artery, and you can see. Okay, now here the blood is flowing along with all the nutrients, dissolved nutrients and everything, components. From these main channels, there are sub-channels which are fine sub-channels that are branched further, okay, which are known as capillaries. These are capillaries. These are thinner in comparison to the main artery and veins. Now, what happens over here? These capillaries, since they carry the blood dissolved with the excess of salt and urea, they have entered where? Into the sweat gland. They enters into the sweat gland, and where the things are given out. What is given out over here? The waste components. These waste components. Simple. Now, they get dissolved with the sweat over there, or the excess of water. What is sweat? Basically the excess of water. Now, here you may see this is the sweat gland. This is the sweat gland. This opens here on the top. You may see here the pore is written. Okay, it is written over here. It is pore. Now, this pore opens on the surface, on the upper surface of the skin. So from here, the salt urea dissolved in the excess of water comes out through this gland, through this pore, and you may feel it or see it on the surface of your skin. We all do it, or we all see it on the surface of our skin. So, skin gives the heat, it generates heat or energy, so that when the sweat comes on the surface, it gets evaporated. And when the sweat is evaporated, we feel comfortable, we feel cool. That is why when you sweat and you sit under the fan, you start feeling cool, just because the sweat, the energy which is liberated out by the skin is helping somewhere the sweat to evaporate. Since the sweat is getting evaporated, it is cooling down. Thus, it is cooling down the surface of the skin, giving us the comfort. So, sweating, apart from the process of excretion, sweating up, like it is helping to expel out the excess of salt and urea. It is also important to regulate the body temperature. So that's all about these few parts. The next is the liver and spleen. So the lifespan of RBCs, red blood cells, are quite short. And see, every cell has its own lifespan. They are not immortal. When these cells break down, they also give up some waste. Okay. So, students, see over here, which is important. Here we are talking particularly about the red blood cells, RBCs, red blood cells. They have short lifespan, okay, and they are broken where? In the liver and the spleen. So when they are broken down, there are certain component which is useful for the further formation of new blood cells. That is, one of them is the iron, and there are certain components which are unuseful. So the part which is not useful is sent where? To the liver. And the part which is useful, like iron, it is retained by the spleen itself, because as the spleen is taking part in the breakdown of the red blood cell, it also takes part, or it also facilitates the formation of the red blood cells. So that means it keeps the component, that is iron, as it will recycle, and it will use it to form new red blood cells. Spleen. But here the component, the unuseful component which is sent to the liver, what happens to those things? They get mixed with the bile. They get mixed with the bile, which is bile juice is secreted up by the liver into the alimentary canal, and then they are expelled out with the fecus. Fecus is the solid waste. Solid waste, that means which forms after the digestion of the food. The part which is not digested is then pushed into the large intestine and is given out or expelled out by the rectum. So that is the solid waste, or we call it as fecus, and it has a yellowish color, and somewhere the color of the fecus depends on this, the color of bile mixed with certain unuseful matter given out by during the breakdown of the red blood cell. All these things together is expelled out with the fecus through the rectum. So that's all about the organs that helps in the process of excretion. In the next module, we will learn about the urinary system and certain urinary tract infections. Thank you and have a good day.